Alright, back again with the Togruta here. We're going to put some freeform air, mostly up into these points. I'm also going to stick some along the ridge just to make it smooth out that area so we can get fiberglass in there easier. Round it out a little bit so when we stick our head in there it's not going to be such a nightmare around that ridge. Be easier to get some padding in there, I'd imagine. Freeform air is cool. I love this stuff. It's a 2-part epoxy putty. It is lighter than, its density is lower than that of water, which is nice, so it'll float if for some reason that's a concern of yours, but it gives you an idea of how heavy it is compared to plastics. Most plastics are significantly denser than water and will sink, but this is specific gravity is 0.86, if I recall that figure correctly. So it doesn't take a lot. A little bit goes a long way. And the other cool thing about it is that it does smooth out with water. I shouldn't need too much of that in this little bit of this process, but 1-to-1 ratio by volume, roughly. No science to this measurement here. That looks about right. Put the lids back on. Stuff does dry out. If you're planning on getting this, get the amount you think you're going to be able to use in like 3 months or so, because the buckets do dry out and they get unusable after a while. Even with these reasonably airtight buckets. Guys at Reynolds were telling me that you can't even separate it out into other containers unless they're really super airtight, because it just dries out, it gets nasty, it doesn't work. This is my mixing method. I found it's the fastest way to get it mixed. I just fold it in half and squish it. It's that same thing like, you know, they say if you were to fold a piece of paper in half 50 times, it'd be the thickness of the moon. Well, that's the idea here, is that you're just doubling the layers so often that they get thoroughly mixed at the molecular level, essentially. Probably. I don't know. Haven't done the math on it, but I fold it a lot. Once you get a nice consistent color throughout the whole thing, I still got a couple of streaky spots here. I'm going to fold in a little bit more. Once you get a nice consistent color, it actually starts getting a little bit tacky. You can see it on my gloves where it wasn't tacky on there before, and then you know you've got a good mix of it. So I'm going to take about half of this at a time. About half of that. Roll this out into a cone so I can smoosh it in there real good. Make sure that it gets all the way up in there, because that will provide a really good amount of reinforcement up there in the ridge. And I forgot to get my water. It's the darndest thing. The water both keeps it from sticking to your gloves, and it will make a kind of a thin film of the epoxy, and it actually helps it stick to what you're sticking it to. So I don't know how that works, that it keeps it from sticking to you and makes it stick to the object, but it's super freaking awesome, and it also helps smooth it out a little bit. And like I said, just a little bit along the ridge here. And if you can get the surface that you're going to be working with just a little bit wet, and the epoxy itself just a little bit wet, it helps adhere to it. Again, I'm not sure what exactly the science is behind that, but it is incredibly useful to help smooth that in there. I don't know how well you're getting that on the camera because my hands are kind of in the way, but just a little bit of that, and it smooths it right out, helps it stick to the surface. And then it'll be way easier to lay a sheet of fiberglass in there, because instead of trying to dig the fiberglass into the corner and then have it come up, where there's a good chance that the corner of the fiberglass wouldn't fold properly and give you a nice sharp crease in there. Now it doesn't have to do that. Now it's just going over a nice smooth area, and that'll be really easy to fiberglass tomorrow when we do that. This epoxy sets up in about 6 hours, which is why I know a lot of people don't like to use it for mother molds like I did here, because, oh, it takes so long, the fiberglass cures so much better, but I prefer it. I think it makes a nicer mother mold. It makes them lighter. There's no fiberglass to stick you in the arms or the hands while you're trying to move your mold around. We've had some negative experiences with that. I tried to do a fiberglass mother mold on this helmet actually initially, and we did not like the result we got off of that. So I'm going to be sticking with the freeform air mother molds for as long as I can. As long as I'm doing this, I imagine. They just work better. I'll stick a little bit in there too, smooth that out so we can, like I said, make it easier to get that fiberglass folded up over there so it won't bunch up in the corner. Because I've had problems with that where if the fiberglass bunches up in the corner and any of that corner takes any kind of a hit, it'll just crumple into there until it hits the fiberglass. Because the fiberglass areas are strongly. Not fiberglass areas are very, very weak. I've got one of my other masks. I think it was a Jack's mask. Might have been a Skyrim. No, I think it was a Skyrim. We were out stress testing it when I was shooting it with some BBs in my gun. And the areas that we'd gotten 2 layers of fiberglass in were fine. The BBs bounced right off of it, and there was an area where I got 1 layer of fiberglass in it, and it broke. Which is why I'm crazy about always putting 2 layers of fiberglass. I'm doing the same thing here. I'm just smoothing this out so the fiberglass will go over it easier, because there's a really sharp corner in there that's pretty deep, and that'll make it easier to get the fiberglass over there. And then when we go to cut the visor out, we'll have a little bit of depth there. Of course, we're doing a lot of modifications on this, and the visor won't be in exactly the same place. I'm going to do the same thing in here, because there's a really deep crease right here, and I'm just going to fill just to be on the safe side and make sure that it won't crack under pressure. Because there's no way in heck I'm going to be able to get any sort of fiberglass in there. This area of the helmet gets cut out anyway, but I want to make sure I have some substance there so that when I do run the cutting wheel on there, it's cutting into something and I've got a good thickness there. If I don't do that, then it could be thin and really brittle on the edge and snap, and I definitely don't want that. No one likes it when their helmets break. Not that I've ever had that happen, because I've always fiberglassed everything, but you always hear stories from other people who go, "Oh, I dropped my helmet like 2 feet and the whole thing busted in half." Well, that'll happen depending on the materials that it's made out of, so. Get that smooshed in there. Give me something nice to cut into when we do go cut that out. And when I'm doing this with a fiberglass, I'll probably just trim the fiberglass to shape here. And ooh, that felt scooshy. That doesn't. Huh. The other issue that I probably ran into here is that I'm willing to bet I did not get enough of the epoxamite into that crack because it is such a thin, harsh angle in there. I don't think I got my brush stippling enough of the epoxamite in there. Now, if I was doing this with rotocasting, there would actually probably be too much plastic in there. But being as this is a brush-on product, it's harder to make sure that you get a good coat on weird geometry like that. Same thing with this geometry that I've got in the points back here. Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Thank you, Victor. I'm just gonna stick this back into the point there, making sure that I've got full coverage in the goofy geometry. I know I did not get enough epoxamite all the way down into that point, so hopefully the epoxy putty that I'm smushing into here will fill it all the way out to that horn. Otherwise, after we demold this thing, we're going to have to patch it with some more of the freeform air.
Just for added comment, the only reason I didn't actually do anything for the casting part of this is it's a new product I've not used before. And I'm not used to the brush on. I usually do the slush molds for him.
Yeah, so that's Victor. He's been helping me out with this stuff, learning how to do all this, and
this is one of my helmet designs, and it is my product. It's just he's teaching me the whole molding and casting and stuff, and helping me get the business off the ground. So
once I'm done making, I'm doing most of the making of the masters, and then Victor's going to take over a lot of the molding and actually casting these things, because he's gotten darn good at it in the last few months with the slush casting and getting the fiberglass in laid in really nice. I think that's about it. You see any other areas that I'm going to need to reinforce with this to smooth it out?
Maybe fill in the eyebrows completely, but I don't know if that would be a smart idea or not.
I don't know about completely. I think I got them smoothed out enough. We certainly can. And besides, then if we want to modify the eyebrows, we can. We'll have something to
have a base
trim into. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Since this is a custom order, we don't quite know how much of the extent of the modification of the base model we have to do. I have a general idea of what I'm going to do. I just don't know if it's going to work yet. So bear with us with this, but we will film every process of it. And like I said, send you the video, since you said you were curious as to how we do this.
And of course, if anyone else watching.
Anybody else out there that's interested in how we cast helmets, or how somebody different casts helmets than what they usually do, you're more than welcome to watch and comment yourself on YouTube.
Fill that portion back in there just to be safe, because I do not want to have to futz around with that. And that's it. I'm out of putty. My gloves are a complete mess. These gloves only get to be used once. Back in the days when I wasn't making enough money at this and I had to be super cheapskate, I would try and reuse those, but it's not worth it anymore. So there you have it. We've got a nice lining on the inside here with the epoxy putty. The fiberglass in with the epoxy is going to go in real smooth right there and not have any harsh corners to bump over and get stuck on. And I think this thing will come out really nice and solid. And then maybe the next one we'll kick across the back porch and see how it survives that.
No, we do need the stress test the togs. We haven't yet, so.
That's true. We haven't dropped these togs. I'm pretty sure the points won't survive too much abuse, but the rest of the helmet should be pretty dang solid.
Alrighty. Any additional comments for now, or?
Nope. I think we're signing off for the night. We got work tomorrow.
Alrighty.